Did you know that we've passed 56 opioid bills this Congress? It's because people want to go home this November and campaign and say they're doing something about the opioid crisis. They got a bill passed in Congress with their name at the top. Very few, if any of those bills have passed the Senate. Those are messaging bills, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Oh, I got new glasses too. The thing I want to see most of all is a more inclusive process. Regardless of what the outcome might be, I would like to see bills that are written by the committees that are supposed to be responsible for the bills instead of bills that are written behind closed doors that skip the committee process and come straight to the floor. I'd like to see an amendment process for bills when they get to the floor where all 435 members of Congress can offer amendments as long as they're germane to the legislation, and they get a vote. They see the light of day, a debate. We haven't been doing that. Like, Congress hasn't been voting on consequential things. We've been naming a lot of post offices, but we haven't been voting on a lot of amendments. Under John Boehner, I have to admit, I got at least half a dozen, maybe 10 votes on the floor. Under Paul Ryan, I've gotten 1 vote.
What's up, my man?
Just hanging around.
I can't do anything about it.
How do we do more of that? Because that seemed like
what we
such
have
a
to stop
profound
doing
deal.
is beating each other up who we disagree with on one or two things and start finding commonality. I've said it 1,000 times to you, and that is if I were a member of Congress under President Obama and not President Trump, I'd look at the Venn diagram of agreement, find the 10% overlap, and get to work.
For the 3.5 years that I've been here, I've called out the establishment and have in fact voted against my own party when I thought we needed to do that. My first vote, my very first vote as a freshman, was against the sitting Speaker of the House, John Boehner. And I had establishment people come up and put their finger in my chest right after that vote, my first day in the job, and said, Blum, you just signed your death warrant. You will not be back. You don't do that. You got to play by the rules around here. You know, at 61 years old at the time, I didn't come here to, quote, play by the rules. Because most of the people I know in the real world don't really like the rules in the swamp.
You think my desk is neat enough?
I started cleaning it up.
Yeah, well, you know what? We've cleaned that desk up every daggone time these guys have come in to film. Here's what it really looks like. It does feel good from time to time to squeeze the Capitol dome. It makes me feel far more powerful than I ever will be.
I worked on all 3 efforts to get rid of John Boehner, and I sit here and tell you today he was better than Paul Ryan. That's a hard thing for me to say, but Paul Ryan has shut down the process here like no other speaker in recent history. I gotta show you something. It's on my wall over here. This was the document that ultimately led to John Boehner's early departure, the motion to vacate the Speaker's office. And in it, we were careful to enumerate our grievances with the way this place was being run. These weren't policy issues, these are process issues. And this is what concerns me. For instance, we said, whereas the Speaker has, through inaction, caused the power of Congress to atrophy, thereby making Congress subservient to the executive and judicial branches, diminishing the voice of the American people. That was one of our grievances. Another was, whereas the Speaker uses the power of the office to punish members who vote accordingly to their conscience instead of the will of the Speaker. Whereas the Speaker has intentionally provided for voice votes on consequential and controversial legislation to be taken without notice and with few members present. And it's the process we need to fix here, regardless of what the policy outcome is.
You know, my political philosophy has always been look people in the eyes, tell them what you believe, then be consistent with what you said. Results be damned, because I always thought, and I still believe, that is the best strategy. Tell the freaking truth.
We're told that you got to close this process down to protect us from those evil Democrats who would offer amendments that would really muck up our bill. They would force us to take votes on issues. Even if their legislation didn't prevail, those votes would be politically damaging to us to take. So the Speaker has protected us. Like a patriarch, he's protecting us from those evil Democrats who would make us vote on our principles. The problem is, what they're really doing is they're protecting certain members of the Republican Party from other members of the Republican Party who want to put issues on the floor, who want to take votes to expose the true positions of people in Congress. And so that's what all this shutting the process down has been about. not protecting Republicans from Democrats, but protecting Republicans from their voters.
If your opinion, your values, and your goals aren't analogous enough with those of the people whom you seek to represent, you shan't represent them, and that's okay.
I actually came here and did what I said I would do. That drives a lot of the establishment, a lot of the career politicians insane. Well, yes, sadly, on both sides of the aisle. But I have never licked my finger and stuck it in the political winds to see which way they're blowing to determine what I'm going to believe in that day. I know what I believe in. I've told the voters what I believe in, and when I've got here, I've followed through. I don't have a problem with Democrats fighting for what they believe in. That's all right too. But let's be principled. Let's have that debate. Let's have that discussion. At the end of the day, I think the best bills take some of our good ideas and some of the other side's good ideas and put them together. And I think any of the big bills out there, whether it's health care or it's anything to do with Social Security or Medicare, the big bills should be bipartisan. The Affordable Care Act, there wasn't a single Republican that signed on to that bill. And the Tax Cuts and Job Act bill, there wasn't a single Democrat that voted for it. We have got to get together here. Neither party has got a corner on fantastic ideas. We've got to get together on these big issues of the day and make them bipartisan.
I mean, transparency is messy. It's hard work. When you open up the amendment process and there are 200 amendments offered and everybody gets 10 minutes to debate. Under John Boehner, we stayed here past midnight some nights actually debating and voting on amendments. All that's gone out the window. I mean, we're going to go home early today. Pat yourself on the back. We've been here 36 hours. Let's call it a week and go home.
I'm sick and tired, candidly, of the not only the willingness, but the gleeful exacerbation and perpetuation of problems in order to score political points. In other words, we have a town full of problems that people could solve but choose not to because it's more useful to score political points off of those problems continuing.